Are you a big fan of collectible packaging for the movies you love on physical media? Or are you wondering what the big deal is with packaging and why some collectors don't mind paying a little extra to secure a nice slipcover, steelbook, or hardbox edition? Well, today I'm diving into the subject of limited edition packaging and answering the rhetorical question, does fancy packaging for your movies really matter? Find out in my latest installment of Back to Basics, which begins right now. So let's rock. Hi everyone, how you doing? Welcome back. I'm Fuzz. So limited edition packaging, that is the topic for today's long overdue installment of Back to Basics. For those of you who are new to the channel, Back to Basics is a series where I explore issues of interest to those who are new to collecting movies on physical media, or maybe just returning to collecting after some time away from it. So anyway, when I say collectible packaging, I'm talking about slipcovers and steelbooks and nice rigid hard box sets that usually have books in them and posters and art cards included. This is the kind of stuff that some of us who collect 4K and Blu-ray movies absolutely salivate over. But I also know there are other collectors out there who really couldn't care less about what they view as just a piece of cardboard over an Blu-ray case. Especially if they can save a little money later on down the line by just getting the standard edition without the collectible packaging. Now, I've been on both sides of the coin because I started out not really caring about packaging all that much, but then coming around to appreciate it more and more over time, to the point where I now place a pretty high value on it as long as it's a film I like and the restoration is solid. Because ultimately, it does come down to what is on the disc first and foremost, doesn't it? So because I've been on both sides of this issue, I thought my perspective on this might be of value to some collectors out there. Plus, I just thought it'd be fun to explore the issue a bit, to share my own thoughts with you guys about collectible packaging, and talk about what role it plays in my own film collecting. By the way, a quick little side note here. I'm still playing with the lights behind me. I haven't decided what colors I like. I'm kind of experimenting, so you may have noticed that I keep changing the colors on the lights for different videos. That's just because I haven't decided what I like the most yet. But I always like to hear your feedback as well, so if you have a preference on the colors you're seeing behind me, by all means, feel free to drop a comment below and let me know what you think. And to just get right into it, I want to start off by asking what I think is a fairly rhetorical question, and that is, does packaging really matter? Well, the short answer is yes, it absolutely matters, but of course that's really going to depend on the individual and the collector's personal preferences. Some people really value collectible packaging, while others don't really care about it that much and would just rather save a little money and wait for a sale. You know, we have all kinds of different collectors among us, each with different preferences who value different things in collecting. Not every collector is going to see things through the exact same lens. And that's totally okay, right? I mean, especially when we're talking about something as subjective as movies and artwork. I mean, as collectors, we're naturally going to share a lot of common traits collectively as a group, right? But our individual preferences and practices in how we collect movies can certainly vary significantly because we are all unique individuals with different tastes. So yes, collectible packaging absolutely does matter, but it's not going to matter to every collector. But that said, I do want to clear up what I think is a pretty common misconception in some collecting circles about those of us who do value collectible packaging. And that is, I think sometimes some people assume that if we care about the packaging at all, then that must mean we're far more into the packaging than we are the actual film itself. But if that really were the case in such instances, why would we even collect movies at all? I mean, we could collect anything. You can collect anything else out there. Why would we choose to collect movies if we didn't really care about the movies themselves? Well, of course, we tend to collect the things that we care about, right? The things that have value to us. And my own personal assumption is that most of us wouldn't even be collecting movies on physical media if we didn't have at least some kind of fundamental love for film itself, right? Some kind of fundamental love of the movies themselves. Because like I said, otherwise we could collect anything else. You know, why would we choose to collect movies? Well, it's because we love movies as collectors. We are passionate about film. We're cinephiles. We're film enthusiasts. In fact, we love them enough to actually buy them on physical media because we're simply not satisfied with just the streaming experience alone, right? We love movies so much that we need a little bit more depth to our viewing experience. Getting excited about the packaging and the artwork just adds another layer of appreciation to that existing love of the films themselves. So I don't accept that faulty binary premise that collectors are either into the packaging or they're into the actual movies. It's possible to care about both at the same time. And just because someone cares about limited edition packaging, that doesn't take anything away from their fundamental appreciation of the film itself. Or at the very least, their fundamental appreciation of the entire motion picture medium in general. So I personally don't think it's right to question the motives of other collectors like that, to make assumptions about why and how they collect the way they do. People are much more dynamic than I think we tend to boil each other down to sometimes. You know what I mean? People love to make assumptions about other people without having all the information. Now, in a few minutes, I'm going to go into a little more detail about why collectible packaging actually matters to some collectors. But before I do that, I just want to go over some of the different types of collectible packaging out there. For any of you who are new to collecting or coming back to it after a long time away, you may not be aware of all the cool stuff that's out there. So I wanted to give you some examples of what draws collectors like myself to such types of packaging. So let's start off with the most basic form of limited edition packaging, the slipcover, like we've got here from Scream Factory with the burning. Slipcovers. And I know some people are like, it's just a piece of cardboard. Why is this considered collectible, right? Well, for those who don't know, slipcovers are usually only produced during the first manufacturing run or the first couple runs. After that, they don't make them anymore, and they just go to a standard edition without a slipcover like that, right? So slipcovers themselves are actually limited edition. They are considered collectible. And the slips can actually be highly sought after, and they can go for quite a bit of money on the secondary market once they're out of print. But the slipcover is like the most basic form of limited edition packaging. And, the quality between manufacturers, between companies or labels, it can vary quite a bit. I consider Scream Factory and probably Kino Lorber to be the worst slipcovers. I mean, I still like them, but they're very, very flimsy and fairly cheap, honestly, if I'm being honest. Look at that. It's pretty thin. This is the kind of slipcover you get from Scream Factory, right? And Kino Lorber's slipcovers are very, very similar. They're made out of, the same paper stock and whatnot. So, but they still look nice when you put them around the Amaray release. And so those of us who like slipcovers, we appreciate having them. Let me show you another one. Here's Shout Factory. Very similar deal with Red Dawn here. Slipcover, a little hole there cut out for the barcode. But yeah, very basic stuff. Nothing too impressive. And then to show you what I mean about Kino Lorber, same thing here, right? Here's To Live and Die in LA. Very basic slipcover. Not a whole lot to it. Same kind of flimsiness as the Shout and Scream Factory slipcovers. So yeah, the Kino Lorber and Scream and Shout Factory slipcovers, I would consider those to be probably the lowest quality of all the stuff that's out there in terms of limited edition packaging. Their slipcovers are probably at the very bottom. I think even major studio slipcovers can be a little better than the Kino and Scream Factory slipcovers. Like, let's take 48 Hours, for example. A Paramount release here. This has got a little bit more of a glossier treatment to it than say, the Kino and Scream Factory slipcovers, but it's still pretty flimsy. Nothing like, not a real thick cardstock there or anything. You got a hole in the back again for the barcode. So they're very similar to Scream Factory and Kino slipcovers, but the one thing I do like about it, you might see a little bit more of a metallic highlights or a kind of a foil appearance to it. So sometimes the art and the way they handle the art, if they make it kind of metallic or whatnot, sometimes that can make the major studio slipcovers a little bit more appealing than like the Scream Factory or Kino slipcovers. However, not everybody really digs this band across the top that actually tells you it's 4K, right? Some people don't like that, and they would prefer to just see that space taken up with more artwork, right? So, but yeah, so that's 48 hours. That's a Paramount slipcover. What else we got here? Knock at the Cabin. What is this? Universal. This is actually a fairly nice looking slipcover. You can kind of see, if I angle it right with the lighting, you can kind of see the metallic foil appearance. And then like in this case, the wording is actually embossed. So Knock at the Cabin is kind of like a raised ink, right? So, you know, it just adds a little bit something extra to the slipcover that maybe the Scream Factory and Kino slipcovers don't have. So they're small things, but yeah, so that's Knock at the Cabin. That's a Universal slipcover. Sometimes slipcovers will even come with like lenticular art on the front, like this Dead and Buried slipcover. Now, if I can angle it right so you can see the lenticularness of it, there you go. See how cool that is? I love that kind of stuff. Now, this is a Blue Underground release, and like this actually was a little thicker release. It was almost like a Criterion clear case kind of deal, right? So this slipcover was actually a little bit thicker and a little bit wider, but it's still more or less same deal. A pretty basic slipcover. The only thing that makes this one a little bit extra special is it's got that cool lenticular front plate there, right? And so that stuff can be really sought after. People love lenticular slipcovers, and I'll show you another one here while I'm at it. Jaws, very popular release, of course. This is the Jaws 4K. Now this slipcover is lenticular, although this one doesn't actually seem to do a whole lot. The teeth just seem to move a little bit. But this slipcover is a little bit more unique in that it's instead of like an O-ring slipcover that you slide up through the top or bottom, this actually slides out from the side here. So you get your Jaws release there, and then of course a nice book in there as well. And you get it's a side-loading slipcover. Now, one thing I didn't know when I first bought this is I thought this was going to be like a rigid box, kind of like the E.T. box, and it wasn't. It's not. It's still fairly flimsy. It's a little bit thicker than you know, it's like doubled up here. So it's a little bit thicker than the Scream Factory and Shout Factory slipcovers, or even just some of the other major studio slipcovers, but it's still fairly flimsy. So, you know, it is what it is, right? But that's just another type. Sometimes you'll get O-ring slipcovers that come in through the top or bottom. Sometimes you'll get these side-loading ones that go in from the side. So, but lenticular slipcovers can be sought after by collectors, and you know, they just add something a little extra special to the release. And then finally, I can't talk about slipcovers without talking about Vinegar Syndrome's awesome slipcovers. They are amazing, and Severin, I think, has started using the same kind of style that Vinegar Syndrome does as well. Severin Films. So let's take a look at Thriller here. What Vinegar Syndrome does, well, first off, you see that, you know, you've got embossing here. So this is all raised and glossy. The text is all glossy, and I don't know if you can see it with the reflection. I'm not getting the best lighting on it, but all this text here is embossed and raised. Same thing here. Even and you've got spot gloss treatment on the words, and then there's even the barrel of the gun there. That's actually a little glossy dot right there. So it's pretty cool. But Vinegar Syndrome always has amazing art on their slipcovers. And one thing I like about their slipcovers that actually make them more collectible is they're just really well made. They're much better quality than what you would get from Scream Factory or Kino Lorber, right? These are a lot thicker. I don't know if you can really tell that here. You know, I'd have to compare it to like a Scream Factory one here, but essentially the thickness of the cardstock that they use is better. It's probably at least double the thickness of a Scream Factory slipcover. So when you get a Vinegar Syndrome slipcover in your hand, it feels a little bit more prestigious. It feels like you have something a little more collectible compared to Scream Factory or like a major studio release. Vinegar Syndrome slipcovers are where it's at. And I gotta say, they're one of the main reasons I started getting more and more interested in slipcovers, because I saw how nice theirs were. And it just kind of changed my perspective on slipcovers in general. But I'll get into that here in a few minutes when I go over my own personal history with collectible packaging and how I came to appreciate it. Next up is the Steelbook, which is a very popular type of collectible packaging. Here's mine for training day here. These are, of course, made out of metal, and I'll show you the back too because I love those bullet holes. You know, Steelbooks are very cool. They're very nice looking. The only downside is that they can get scratched up and dented easily. They can break. Sometimes I've seen occasionally these spines will break and it'll separate into two pieces. So there's always that risk with Steelbooks. You got to treat them really well and you got to be very careful with them. Keep them in protectors. I keep all my Steelbooks in protectors. I just have this one out just for demonstration purposes for the video. But usually I keep all my Steelbooks in plastic covers to protect them from any scratching or other damage. Sometimes you'll just get a straight up basic Steelbook like this. And I guess I can open this up so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. The Steelbook opens up, you got your discs in there, but the whole case is metal, right? So the thing with a Steelbook is if something happens to the case, you can't just swap out the case because the case is the art with a Steelbook, right? So that's one of the downsides of Steelbooks. The upside is that they just look really nice and they're very, they feel kind of prestigious when you have them in hand. But I like Steelbooks, but I'll admit I'm more into slipcovers, but I'll get into that more here in a few minutes. Another great Steelbook here is Reservoir Dogs. Check this out. This one was pretty cool because it actually came with a plastic clear slipcover. You got the ears sliding off there, of course. I just had to have it when I saw this. I was laughing my ass off when I first saw the design of this. I thought it was awesome. So yeah, Reservoir Dogs, Steelbook there. So yeah, Steelbooks. And it's the same deal as Training Day. You know, it's a metal casing, right? And so yeah, by the way, this is great. Both of these actually are really great. If you haven't seen the 4Ks of these are both 4K. If you haven't seen Reservoir Dogs or Training Day in 4K, they're both awesome. They're both excellent transfers. You really can't go wrong with them. So, but I'll set that aside for now. So those are what Steelbooks look like. Next up is the chunky box set. That's what I call it anyway, the chunky box set. And that is these nice, rigid, hard box editions that have all kinds of goodies in them. Let's take Waterworld, for example. This was put out by Arrow. This is also 4K. This is a fantastic edition. You get a nice chunky box set there. Usually comes with, you get a little book in there, there's a poster, you've of course got the Amaray case with the discs, and there are some art cards in there. So yeah, it's got a lot of good stuff in it. These editions are just awesome, and personally, this is my favorite type of limited edition packaging. I love these chunky box sets. Arrow puts out a lot of them, but they're not the only company that puts them out. So yeah, let's dig into one of these and show you what we got here. So you take out the Amaray case here, and of course this one has, I think, 3 discs, right? Like that. Okay. You've got some art cards in there. There's a ton of bonus features, big feature-length making of documentary. You also get a poster, which I never unfold. I'm not going to bother unfolding it now. And then, of course, with these editions, you also get a cool little book that usually has, let's see if I can do this on camera. I'm not used to showing these things off on camera, but you get essays and all kinds of stuff about the movie in there. And so yeah, these are the chunky box set editions. Those are what I call them. I absolutely love them. I have a number of them. If I have a choice, if it's a movie I really like and I have a choice between a slipcover, a chunky box, or a steelbook, I'll usually go with the chunky box. I think the chunky boxes are really cool. Here's another type of chunky box. This is a Vinegar Syndrome design, a little bit slightly different design, but it's nice and thick. Same kind of deal as that Waterworld one, except this one has a nice little diagonal cut. You open it up and you've got your slip-covered release inside. This is Vinegar Syndrome, so they always go all out on this stuff. So, oops, I gotta be careful I don't show this. The back side of this has some nudity on it, and I don't think YouTube would appreciate that. So, but you get one of Vinegar Syndrome's killer slipcovers, like I talked about with Thriller there a few minutes ago. And then you also get, you know, usually like a 40-page book too with essays and whatnot on the movies. So this is just another style of chunky box, Blade in the Dark. I absolutely love it. And, you know, you got to love the packaging on something like this. And this was a pretty unique design, unique to just this title. Vinegar Syndrome doesn't do this exact design with all of their titles. It's, you know, this one, and I think they've got a new one coming out that's going to have a similar, somewhat diagonal design. But yeah, so chunky boxes are awesome. Oh, and of course, you know, we can't talk about chunky boxes without talking about Vinegar Syndrome's VSU box, which stands for Vinegar Syndrome Ultra. You guys have seen this Roadhouse, right? What's cool about Roadhouse, you get this magnetic latch, that magnetic latching box that opens up, and of course your slip-covered unit. You even have a little ribbon there to take it out, right? And then you've got a book underneath there as well. Well, I actually lifted the book up with the ribbon, but I'm not going to tear it all apart and go into it in detail. I've talked a lot about this one on this channel. So, but yeah, I mean, Vinegar Syndrome's VSU box sets, these are awesome. And to me, this is one of my favorite types of collectible packaging, even among chunky box sets. I love the Vinegar Syndrome VSU boxes. Another cool hard box edition that Vinegar Syndrome put out that's worth, just to kind of give you another example of some of the cool stuff they do, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Now this is kind of like the chunky box set model, except it's a little bit thinner, right? It's not quite as chunky as like the Arrow sets or Vinegar Syndrome's VSU boxes, right? This one's a little bit more streamlined, right? You get a nice hard box, but you also get a very cool high quality Vinegar Syndrome slipcover on top of that with, you know, embossing and spot gloss on the text and whatnot. Oh, I'm losing it here. You might want to see the back there. Also got spot gloss on the chainsaw blade, which might be kind of hard to see here, but very cool stuff. That's one thing I like about Vinegar Syndrome is they often put slipcovers in with their hard box editions. So now this doesn't, oops, holding upside down. This doesn't have a booklet or anything like that, no art cards or anything. It's just the disc and the emery case and the slipcover and a nice hard box. But the cool thing about this particular release is it's absolutely loaded with tons of bonus features, hours and hours of interviews. I think you got multiple retrospective and making of documentaries here. You got a new interview with Tom Savini, just hours and hours of bonus content on this, and one of the best releases I've seen in terms of bonus features. They really loaded this release up. So, but yeah, that's just another example, you know, of some of the cool stuff that a company like Vinegar Syndrome does. And then another type of chunky box I wanted to talk about. This was also put out by Arrow, except they gave us the best of both worlds. They gave us a steelbook inside a nice chunky box set. So how cool is that? Huh? I mean, let me show you this bad boy. You've got Patricia Arquette, Christian Slater there, True Romance. And even this steelbook looks better in hand than it does through the video here. It's got a nice kind of metallic sheen to it that, like I said, it's probably kind of hard to see here. But it's very slick looking. Plus, you also get, you know, the chunky box set. You get the poster. You get the book that goes with True Romance with essays. And then, of course, you know, some additional stuff inside the steelbook, like art cards and whatnot. So, yeah, this True Romance box is one of my favorite limited edition releases that I own. It's just fantastic. I love that Arrow combined the steelbook and the chunky box set into one release. That's just like, and they even called it Deluxe Steelbook Limited Edition when they sold this. So yeah, chunky boxes are awesome, especially when they include steelbooks as well. And then sometimes you'll actually get something even cooler than the Arrow chunky box set, something even more comprehensive, more packed, like this Frighteners box that I imported from Germany. This was put out by a company called Turbine. They do great work over there, but this thing is huge. Like, let's take this Waterworld box set by comparison. Now let's put them next to each other so you can see what I'm talking about here. Look how much bigger that Frighteners set is. Is that crazy or what? And I mean, I'll try to open it up on camera here. I'm not the best at doing this, but you get the whole thing, this nice Huge box set that comes with, this is all 4K, by the way. It's a 6-disc set. Has like a 4.5-hour making of documentary that was put together by Peter Jackson himself. I mean, this is an amazing release. So you get like a slipcover inside there. And let me set this down so I can show you what I'm dealing with here. All right, so there's a D. Wallace there. And it opens up like this. And you get 6 discs in there. Look at that. Is that crazy or what? You get so many different versions of the films. Yeah, so I love these super deluxe box sets. They're amazing. Let's see what else is in here. Of course, there's a whole bunch of art cards. You got a bit, I'm trying to hold multiple things here and show it to you. You got a whole bunch of art cards here. You got a little business card there for Michael J. Fox's character. And I don't want to take these out of here. And then there's multiple posters. There's like 2 different posters in here. And then, of course, you have a really fairly substantive book. This looks to be, I don't know, maybe about 100 pages, maybe? Now, the only problem with a German release like this is that the text in the book is written in German, so you have to use like Google Translate or something if you want to read that. But aside from that, I mean, the discs all play fine in English with multiple English audio tracks. Usually like at least 3 or 4. So sometimes you just get this really massive, awesome release for a title. Dawn of the Dead, they also had an amazing like 7-disc set that was put out by Second Sight. Second Sight in particular is well known for doing these types of things, but of course, like I said, this was a German release. So yeah, sometimes you get something really extra cool that goes beyond even an Arrow chunky box set. And you know, I can't say I have any regrets at all picking up this Frightener set. This was a really just fantastic, stellar release. Oh, I guess I do have one other fun little like collectible type packaging to show you here as an example. I think I've shown this off before, but the Close Encounters box. This one was pretty cool. Let's see if you can hear what's going on here. Check this out. Yeah, I love that. You gotta love that. So, and it, you know, the top lifts off. You've got the I actually have two versions of Close Encounters, but yeah, you got a book in there, a nice glossy book, and then of course the Amaray case behind it, which did come with a slip, but I've got my slip-covered edition on the shelf. I have my non-slip-covered edition. Like I said, this was a double dip. That is filling up the space in here. So, but yeah, this is awesome. And, you know, I love stuff like that. Yeah, it's a little gimmicky, but it's cool, you know, and, you know, collectors eat this kind of shit up. It's true. We do. Okay, so now that I've gone over a few examples of the different types of collectible packaging out there, I want to talk for a few minutes about my own personal journey toward appreciating collectible packaging, how my perspective has changed over the last couple years, and what I've learned. Like I said earlier, some collectors really don't care about the packaging all that much, and I completely understand that because I was once in the same place. When I first got back into collecting, I felt the same way. I was certainly more focused on saving a little money, trying to find good deals on titles, than I was trying to secure any kind of limited edition packaging. I never used to care about any slip covers or steel books or anything like that. The way I saw it, as long as I had a disc and an Amaray case and some insert art, I was good to go. That solidified my own personal ownership of the title, so that was good enough for me. I never really thought about the packaging or any other additions beyond that once I added it to my collection. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've always liked slipcovers. I've always appreciated it whenever I received a title that has come with a slipcover, but I didn't necessarily even know why some titles came with slipcovers and why some didn't. I had no idea that slipcovers were usually limited to the first production run or two. I just assumed some movies they put out slipcovers for and some movies they didn't. So because I didn't really know how all this stuff worked at the time when I got back into collecting a few years ago, I never really concerned myself with picking up titles when they were first released, like on release day or anything like that. Unless, of course, I was just anxious to have the film and anxious to see it. But otherwise, I would just wait for good deals on Amazon, wait for good sales or Black Friday sales or whatnot. Well, that all began to change for me probably about a year and a half to 2 years ago. Once I bought my first limited edition chunky box sets from Arrow Video in this case. And it was kind of an accident, really, because I wasn't really planning on getting into chunky box sets at all. I used to be one of those guys who would see other people online showing off their chunky box sets, and I would look at them and I'd go, wow, you got to be a really big fan of that movie to want to get something like that. That was actually my thought process back then. Oh, only really big fans of the movie, like people for whom that's like their favorite movie of all time, those are the people that would buy these chunky box sets. Well, little did I know that I was completely off base with that assumption. It doesn't just have to be an all-time favorite movie in order for me to buy a limited edition box set. And what got me into them is I was browsing Amazon one day, kind of searching through Amazon, looking for some new 4Ks to pick up. And I happened to notice that a couple titles that I was in the market for were on sale for a really good price in that limited edition box set form. Those titles were, if you're curious, Donnie Darko. This was the very first one I got. And then during that same week, during that same week, I also got Deep Red. Both, chunky Arrow box sets that are amazing. So essentially what happened is I noticed these box sets were on sale for like, I don't know, it was around $30, I think, at the time. Both of them were, around that price, give or take a few dollars. And I started thinking about it. I was like, dang, that's not really that expensive. That's not really any more expensive than a standard edition new release 4K would be on release day. So at the time, I'm thinking at that price, it would be kind of nice to have a couple really nice editions of something in my collection. I had no intention of this becoming a regular thing for me where I would begin collecting chunky box sets on a regular basis. I just thought this was going to be a one-off thing where I would just buy a couple titles in those nicer editions and call it good, and then go back to collecting my standard edition 4Ks for everything else. But then I received my first two chunky box sets, and it turned out to be a total game changer for me. I'm looking at this Donnie Darko box set here. As I first get it, I'm looking at all the packaging. I'm looking at the cool book that's inside of it. This actually came with a hardback book, like a 100-page hardback book. Of course, there's a poster in here as well. Couple discs, you get a couple different versions of the film, and of course, plenty of special features, including a feature-length retrospective making of type documentary. So I'm looking at this when I first get it, and I'm like checking out all the stuff, and I'm like, damn, these are really nice. I definitely have to get me some more of these types of editions. A couple days later, Deep Red came, and this one wasn't quite as impressive as the Donnie Darko box, mainly because this only had like a perfect bound book, a little thinner. This was maybe a 40 to 60 page book, right? So not quite as cool as the Donnie Darko box, but you still had your poster and your Amaray case and the discs and multiple versions of the film. And of course the chunky box set, right? Nice rigid box set. So yeah, so once I saw these collectible editions, I was all in on these chunky box sets, and I knew that I was in trouble, and that I was going to be spending more money in the future than maybe I had previously been spending, on this type of stuff. So, but yeah, these were my first impressions for chunky box sets, and it blew my mind. I thought they were so cool. Really, when you have something like this in hand, it just feels like it's got so much weight to it, like I said earlier, prestigious, it feels like a really nice edition. It doesn't feel like something that was just thrown together really quickly and cheaply. It feels like someone actually put some time and thought into making something that was for the collectors, right? Something that the collectors absolutely would appreciate. And, I got into it. I got all in on it. Overall, these kind of nice chunky box set releases just make a really big impression and can have a huge impact in how one views collecting in general. My own views certainly began to evolve after I got my first couple chunky box sets. And I even began looking at slipcovers a little differently in the aftermath of getting my first chunky box sets. Now, it was around this time that I also got my first steelbook, and I gotta say, my first impression with the steelbook, it didn't go quite the same way as it did when I got my first chunky box sets. My first steelbook around this time was The Matrix Resurrections. And, I gotta say, I wanted a steelbook. I didn't own any steelbooks at that point. I really just wanted to see what the whole steelbook thing would be like. And so I picked this up, and I gotta say, I was a little disappointed. I was not that impressed with this one. This probably wasn't the best choice for my first steelbook, but I didn't know. I liked this movie. I thought it was a decent movie. I was all excited about it. I mainly got it because I wanted to have a steelbook for something in the Matrix. I love the Matrix franchise, all four movies. So yeah, this was my first chance at getting a steelbook, and I bought it. And overall, I think after that, I didn't really take to steelbooks in quite the same way that I did to these chunky box sets, right? If given the choice between a steelbook or a chunky box set, I will choose the chunky box set every time. That's just my own personal preference. So yeah, I got that Matrix Resurrection steelbook. I wasn't really blown away with it. So after that, I kind of started to gravitate more towards slipcovers than steelbooks. Now, don't get me wrong, I do like steelbooks. I do still buy them occasionally, but I probably only buy maybe 2 or 3 titles a year on steelbook. And, in my whole collection, I probably have maybe less than 30 steelbooks total in my entire collection. So I don't really consider myself a steelbook collector, but I do like them. And occasionally I will buy one if the artwork is really cool and I'm looking to do something a little extra special for a certain title. Then I might get a steelbook, especially if like with the case with The Exorcist, I ended up going with the steelbook for that because the slip-covered version, at least here in the US, was terrible. The artwork looked horrible. So in that case, and I actually like the artwork on the steelbook, and for such an iconic title like The Exorcist, I had to go with the steelbook. But otherwise, yeah, I figured out that I really am more of a slipcover person than a steelbook person. And I've gotten to the point where if it's a title I care about at all, I do try to get a slipcover wherever possible. However, I do have limits to how far I'll go with slipcovers, right? I don't worry about slipcovers for titles that have been out for a long time and for which these slipcovers are long gone and sold out of print or whatnot. I don't worry about that because then it would get kind of costly. If I had to try and go back through my collection here and try and find slip covers for everything that doesn't have a slip, that would be incredibly expensive, like on eBay or whatnot. So, I don't worry about it that much. I do try to get slip covers wherever I can, but if something doesn't come with a slip cover, it's not the end of the world for me. I can live with it. So since becoming a fan of collectible packaging, I've had to become a lot more strategic in how and what I purchase. I prioritize certain items over others based on release date and based on which ones I want to get a slipcover for or a chunky box set for or whatnot. If I want to make sure that I'm guaranteed a slipcover, then I will pre-order the item and make sure I get it right when it first comes out, because that's what you got to do. Now, my view is, and this depends on the release, of course, but my view is usually if you want a slipcover, usually if you get it in the first 2 or 3 months of release, there's probably a good chance you're going to get a slipcover, sometimes even longer than that. I bought things on Amazon 6 months to a year after they were released and still got a slipcover for certain films. So you just never know. It really just depends on the title, how popular it is, and how many slipcovered units were produced and how quickly they run out. Also, I don't like to pay what I would call full price for these kinds of items, especially like these chunky type box sets, right? Or essentially MSRP list price, right? I don't like to pay that for these items, and I won't usually pay that for these types of items. A lot of times you can end up getting these chunky box sets for like $30 or $40 if you're pre-ordering them. I've gotten quite a few of them that way, pre-ordering on Amazon, right? Well, if I can get one of these cool box set editions for only like $30 or $35 on pre-order using Amazon's lowest price guarantee, for example, that's really not that much more than I would pay, like I said, for a standard edition 4K release when it first comes out on release day. So for me, the extra few dollars that I might pay for something like this is more than justified when you consider all the cool stuff that you get in these kinds of editions. But I do have limits to how much I will spend on these types of editions. You know, I'm not going to take to eBay and pay $100 for something like this, for this kind of a box set, right? That's just too much for me. I'll just go without the limited edition and just get like a standard edition instead, if that's the case. You know, I'm not someone who likes to pay exorbitant amounts of money to secure, you know, limited edition items. So I really only get them when I can get them for a reasonable price. Once items go out of print and the prices have skyrocketed on the secondary market, then I'm out of the business with those titles. I don't even worry about those. I'm just like, all right, well, I guess I won't own that one, you know? Now, there are rare exceptions where I might actually go over those little internal price limits that I've set for myself, where I might actually be willing to pay a little bit more than I usually would for a really nice limited edition release. Especially if it's a really important title to me that I know is likely to sell out and that won't ever be a better deal than whatever the current price it is. Case in point, Severin Films' release of Dario Argento's Four Flies on Gray Velvet last year. They told customers that you were only going to be able to get this version of this during Black Friday weekend. And it was like $55, I think, at the time, not including shipping. It was actually more than that after shipping. So it was a pricey release. This just has a nice slipcover. It is not a chunky box set. So, I mean, I remember thinking at the time that the price was kind of insane for what you get. I do believe it's like a 4-disc set, though, and there's tons of bonus features, and the restoration is solid. But packaging-wise, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more with this. But that aside, I mean, I still paid the price to get it, right? I'm a huge Dario Argento fan. I have all these other titles from Argento in 4K. So once I saw this was coming out on 4K, I jumped on it. I had to have it. It was an important title to me, so I was willing to spend a little bit more than I normally would for this type of thing. And the key to getting these kind of cool box sets for a fairly reasonable price is to get them early on, to pre-order them if you can. Like I said, I like to use Amazon, right? But, you can often pre-order the stuff directly from the boutique that is putting them out. But getting them on pre-order is usually when they're going to be the least expensive, at least relative to how much the price is going to skyrocket to once these things go out of print and they're on the secondary market. Plus, sometimes these things sell out really fast anyway, like long before they're even released. Sometimes certain items will actually sell out on pre-order during the pre-order period. This is especially true with steelbooks, right? Steelbooks and exclusive steelbooks, like Best Buy exclusive steelbooks or Walmart exclusive steelbooks. Yeah, these can sell out pretty fast, and a lot of times these exclusive steelbooks will sell out within just a few weeks, long before they're released. So the key to getting those is to jump on them when you see them, to jump on them fast to make sure you secure your copy. How fast the movie sells out is just going to depend on the title, how popular it is, what type of collectible edition it is, what the artwork looks like, etc. Another internal rule that I have for myself that I do occasionally make exceptions for is that I try to avoid double dipping with a title on the same format simply for the packaging, at least if I can avoid it. But like I said, I do make exceptions here and there for that. I'm someone who prefers to buy things only once on a format if I can, but to try and get a really packed, definitive edition of that title. But it really just depends on the title to me and how important the title is to me personally. Here's an example. I did double dip on Terminator 2 on 4K. I originally had just this standard edition 4K. It was one of the first 4K discs I ever bought when I first got into collecting 4K a few years ago. Well, at the time, like I said, I didn't know anything about collectible packaging or anything like that. I wasn't even looking for a slipcover or anything for this. I got this. It was cheap on Amazon at the time, and I was like, oh yeah, this is one of my all-time favorite films. Got to get Terminator 2 in my collection. And so I grabbed it. Well, fast forward a few years later, and I'm kind of like, this is an all-time favorite film. Why do I just have this standard edition? I should have something a little extra special for this release, given how important the film is to me. Now, I know, the transfer is crap on this. This does not look good. It's one of the worst 4Ks out there. And by the way, no, it's not James Cameron's fault. the studio screwed up and used a 3D master for the 4K disc instead of using a 4K master. So, but yeah, that aside, what I ended up doing a few years later, after I got this, was finding this cool, steelbook from Best Buy. And I happened to stumble across it when it was on sale for only like 15 bucks. Well, I mean, $15 for a 4K steelbook is a pretty good deal. So I was like, well, yeah, I know the transfer's crap, but if this is the best we're going to get, then I really should have a nicer edition of this for my collection, just because the film is so important to me, right? And so I got this one. Of course, this is awesome. You got another colored printed clear slipcover, which is very cool. And then, of course, you get the steelbook on the inside, right? So yeah, really cool stuff. And this is one of the rare situations where I actually bought this solely for the packaging. I almost never do that, but this was one of those situations where I felt it was appropriate to pick this title up on steelbook form. Although, interestingly enough, I've heard some rumblings that they may actually be redoing the Terminator 2 4K at some point, maybe next year or whatnot. So who knows? Maybe I'll be triple dipping for this and getting an even cooler collectible edition when they get around to doing that. However, on the other hand, with something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I found that this slip-covered version it had everything I really needed, right? And, it was just a judgment call. This is one of those titles where I also have a Blu-ray steelbook. So at the time, I was thinking, I don't even know if I need to upgrade it to 4K, right? But I had just recently picked up this awesome Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Vinegar Syndrome 4K, and the nice hard box. So knowing that Texas Chainsaw Massacre was coming out on 4K not too long after, I had to at least upgrade it to 4K. The main reason I got this was for the special features. I wanted the new documentary stuff. I wanted the archival documentary stuff, especially given that TCM2 just came absolutely loaded with bonus features. And the Blu-ray release that I had of this didn't have any bonus features really, or not many. It was just the movie primarily. The Blu-ray release I had was put out by the same company, Dark Sky. So when they announced the 4K, I was like, and with all the cool special features that you actually get on this, I was like, yeah, I definitely got to get it. But there was also a second sight release of this on 4K, and they did actually do a chunky box set. This is just a slipcover, of course, right? Very, very straightforward stuff. Not even a particularly meaty slipcover, but it had a slipcover, and I actually really liked the art on the slipcover more than the second sight edition that they were putting out. Now, I'll have to admit, I was a little tempted by that second sight chunky box set, which has like a big thick book in it, and it has all kinds of stuff. But content-wise, the content on that second sight edition is very comparable to all the stuff we're getting on here. Now, Second Sight, yes, they usually do better restorations, right, than just about anybody. They are amazing. The work they do is awesome. I have their Dawn of the Dead restoration on 4K, and it's incredible, right? Second Sight does amazing work. And I really was kind of on the fence at first because I was like, oh, that Second Sight chunky box is very tempting. But because I'm only lukewarm on this film, I actually like the second movie more than the first. I'm not as enamored with this film as other people seem to be. So I've always been kind of like, I like the film, but I'm still just kind of lukewarm on it compared to the second one. So, for me, just getting a standard edition with a slipcover was totally adequate for my purposes, especially since the only reason I was really getting this was to get the special features. So that's an example of why I would opt for a slipcover over a chunky box set edition. Of course, this was a little cheaper than the second sight release as well, and you have to import the second sight release or get it from someplace like Diabolic DVD or Orbit DVD. A little bit more expensive than the domestic Dark Sky 4K release. So this was more than adequate for my purposes. This had everything that I really needed, and I was fine just having a slipcover for this one. Okay, now we're going to get into the why of it all, right? Why does collectible packaging matter to some collectors? Well, there are a number of different reasons, and let's get into them here. First off, limited edition packaging, like we've seen already, it just tends to make the releases look a lot nicer, right? They have more of a premium feel and aesthetic to them, right? So that's a key reason people love these limited edition releases, because they look awesome. They look like, you feel like you're preserving something of importance, when you get something like that and have a release like that in your hands. Another reason is people like to collect the different types of artwork that come out on different editions, right? When there are releases, sometimes there are multiple editions. You'll get a slipcovered edition, you'll get a steelbook edition, you might even get a chunky box set edition in addition to that, right? People in each of these editions is going to have different types of artwork, of newly commissioned or sometimes original artwork, but that's one of the appealing factors about double dipping and picking up more than one version of the same film on the same format. Some collectors like to collect the artwork, right? They like to have the different types of artwork, especially if it's a film they're really excited about, that they really like. I totally get that. If you're really into the film and you want to have every version released with all the different type of artwork variants, yeah, I get that. Some people like to own every version available of certain films, especially if the film in question is one that's really important to them. Another reason people get into the packaging is because people like to have definitive editions of their favorite films on physical media, and even definitive editions of films that we're just discovering, i.e. blind buying. Collectible packaging is part of what makes an edition a definitive edition. It's not the only thing, but it's certainly a key part. And when I say definitive edition, I'm talking about beautiful artwork, rigid, durable packaging, maybe a book with some essays in it, maybe some art cards or lobby cards, of course, posters, the best transfer available, and then, of course, a whole slew of bonus features, especially if it has like a making of documentary that's like the length of a movie, feature-length making of documentaries or retrospective documentaries. You put all that into a single release, and then, do like a nice chunky box set like this that has everything. This is a definitive edition, right? This has everything that you could possibly want for if you're a fan of this film, right? So like when I said earlier, I prefer to buy things only once if I can, but buy definitive editions wherever possible. That's, if I can get a definitive edition of a film that I really love, I absolutely will. With a title like Donnie Darko, I'm never going to buy this movie again. I mean, this has everything I could possibly want with this movie. So I'm good, so I consider it an investment, I'm good to go on Donnie Darko. And, I've got a kick-ass definitive edition. And I absolutely love this kind of stuff. Another reason packaging matters to some collectors is because it's just part of the overall experience, right? Think of it this way, you've got your collection. It's like browsing the shelves of your own personal video store, right? Part of the experience is going through your collection, picking up the titles, admiring the artwork, handling the releases, while you're pondering what movie to watch. Going through the ritual of opening up the set and taking the disc out and caring for the disc, cleaning the disc if it needs it. Like I said earlier, the packaging just adds another layer of appreciation to your existing love of movies, right? I know it seems like kind of a small thing, but the impact of packaging on the overall experience cannot be understated. I mean, just like I know when I'm going to watch a movie, I love going through my shelves here and over there. Just kind of picking up titles and looking at them. Am I in the mood for this tonight? Oh, but it gives you a chance to kind of admire the artwork, kind of maybe thumb through your packaging. Of course, RoboCop, another chunky box set here, right? I'm just going to set it here for now. So yeah, the packaging just adds another layer of enjoyment to the overall experience of being a collector and being a film enthusiast. Another key reason why packaging matters, and I feel like this is totally stating the obvious here, but Collectible packaging is limited, right? It's limited in quantity. So that automatically is going to give it more value in the eyes of some collectors. Just like how any work of art, like a painting or whatever, just like how any work of art that is limited is also going to have value to some people, the same applies to physical media. I mean, there's just something extra special about having a beautiful edition of a movie in your collection and knowing that other people who are coming into the collecting game later on miss the boat on it and won't be able to get it. Yeah, that has value. So just due to the limited nature of collectible packaging, that alone is extremely appealing to a lot of collectors. By the way, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, do me a favor and please consider subscribing to the channel and also hitting that notification bell so you can be alerted whenever I'm posting videos that you might be interested in. Also, don't forget to like the video. It really does help with the channel's visibility more than people might think. So thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. Okay, and for the last section of this video, I just wanted to touch on any downsides to being a fan of collectible packaging. What are some of the negatives, some of the issues or complications or problematic things that can come up as a result of being a fan of collectible packaging? Well, first off, once you start caring about things like collectible packaging, then you also start to pay a lot more attention to the condition the items arrive in when you're ordering online. Which is pretty much where we're headed with physical media, right? To an online-only model. So this factor might come into play a little bit more often, right? Because there can certainly be problems sometimes with, Amazon or Best Buy or whatnot with how the items arrive, the condition they arrive in. Amazon, for example, doesn't always do the best job packaging things so that there's plenty of padding or whatever. So sometimes you might get a slipcover that's got some dings on the corners or whatnot, or you can even get a damaged steelbook with dents or scratches in it. So that is, of course, problematic if you have to deal with that. If you're someone who doesn't care about collectible packaging, then that's usually not as much of an issue for you because you're not looking at the condition of the slipcover or the steelbook, as it were. You're just interested in having the movie in your collection, and so it's all good. But for those of us who do care about slipcovers and do care about the condition they arrive in, you want them to look nice when they get to you, I'll admit, not every slipcover I've gotten from Amazon has been in perfect, pristine condition. Sometimes there's some little dings on the corners or whatnot. And I'm not too hardcore about it personally. I don't get too wigged out about that. I mean, I do return things. I have returned things to Amazon that did arrive damaged before. So it just depends on the level of damage, right? If we're just talking about a little tiny ding on like the corner of a slipcover, I'm not sure it's worth returning to Amazon to get a replacement. But, your own mileage may vary. Everybody's different in terms of what they're willing to tolerate from online retailers and the products that they receive. I mean, we know that some companies don't ship physical media as well as other companies. Sometimes Best Buy has shipped steelbooks, just throwing a steelbook in a box and send it in a box, rattling around in the box. Like, that's not cool. But, what are you going to do, right? I mean, I like to use Amazon because at least with Amazon, if something does happen, if I do receive a damaged item, their return process is super flexible and really easy. And I have like a drop-off point just a couple miles down the road from my house. Yeah, I do sometimes occasionally get something that's a little dinged up, and sometimes I'll even return it to Amazon. But the reason I keep buying from Amazon is because of how easy their return process is, because I know I'm covered. If I get something from Amazon that's not quite up to par, I can always return it and have them automatically just send me out another one. But that certainly is a thing with collectible packaging. If you care about the packaging, then you're going to start caring about the condition that packaging arrives in when you're ordering online, and maybe even paying a whole lot more attention to it than you ever did before. Of course, another issue is the cost, right? While there are ways to be savvy and to be able to hunt down good deals online and find good deals on physical media, ultimately you do end up paying a little bit more if you're a fan of collectible packaging and to secure that collectible packaging. Sometimes it may only be a few dollars more. Sometimes it might be quite a bit more, just depending on how intent you are on securing a particular release. But you do end up paying a little bit more for collectible packaging than you would if you were to just wait for things to go on sale later on down the line, like on a Black Friday sale or something. If you're someone who's both patient and doesn't care about slipcovers or collectible packaging, then you can really get some killer deals sometimes online just by being patient and holding off and waiting for a good sale. Another thing is I do find overall that I buy fewer titles maybe than I otherwise would because I'm a fan of collectible packaging. So that's the trade-off for me, right? As the increased cost associated with collectible packaging does play a role in how I collect movies. I may buy fewer movies, but the movies I do buy are high quality and they tend to have cooler packaging and limited edition attributes. And then of course you want to protect your investment, so some collectors may take on the added cost of buying little plastic covers or protectors for their steelbooks and their slipcovers, right? Like I've done here to keep them looking nice. And I'm sure there are some other downsides to packaging, some other negatives that you guys could come up with out there. But I just wanted to touch on a few of the big issues that we all experience as part of our collecting journey. Okay, so that about wraps up everything I wanted to touch on here with regard to why collectible packaging matters to some collectors. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Are you a big fan of limited edition packaging? And if so, what are your preferences? Are you more of a slipcover guy, or are you more of a steelbook person, or do you like the chunky box sets? Or are you someone who doesn't like collectible packaging and thinks it's a waste? Either way, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I always love chatting with you guys and hearing your feedback. So thank you so much for watching today. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and all that good stuff. I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you real soon.